Hey guys, it's Andrew Egger with the Bulwark. Illegal immigration has been in the news a lot all year. Legal immigration is now something we are talking more and more about, particularly the TPS, temporary protected status, which many migrants in the U.S. currently hold. It's one of the kind of forms of legal status that exist out there for people from countries torn by war, various other forms of violence and unrest to come and have legal status here. Donald Trump over the weekend kind of made some news because he took aim at specifically TPS holders from Somalia. He's been feuding with Representative Ilhan Omar, who is Somali, who is representative from Minnesota, from a district with a high portion of Somali constituents. And so that was kind of back in the news because he did that. But that's just kind of just one small part of a long-standing theme this year, which is the president kind of clamping down on this program and other forms of legal immigration across the board. So here to talk about it all a little bit is our economics reporter, Catherine Rampell. Catherine, how are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
I am not so bad. So can you just lay this out for us a little bit? Because this is one of these things that's been sort of like burbling beneath the surface while we careen from crisis to crisis in the Trump administration. But not less important for having not been paid as much attention to as maybe we ought to have.
Sure. So there's obviously rightfully been a lot of attention paid to the really horrible, aggressive, ghoulish raids that are happening where ICE agents and CBP agents are snatching people off the streets and busting into workplaces and all of that, primarily going after people who are undocumented, although some people are getting swept up in that who actually do have legal status or they're even citizens, but that's not really the target. Meanwhile, the administration has also been going after hundreds of thousands of people who have documents and essentially de-documenting them. You mentioned TPS, so there are a lot of people who are on this. It is, temporary protected status. It doesn't confer like a green card. It's not the same kind of thing. But the idea is that you are lawfully present. The government knows you are here. You are eligible for a work permit. And there are 500,000 people who have work permits through that program who are, currently able to hold down a job, who are expected to lose their ability to legally work by the end of the year. There are also a lot of other kinds of visa programs and work permits that are also being snatched away from people, whether we're talking about international students and their ability to work after college in particular, or come here in the first place. Skilled worker visas called H-1Bs. There have been a bunch of changes to that program to make it harder to come here, to stay here, to work here. Asylum seekers. There are a lot of these different categories of visas and various kinds of legal status that, for the most part, Americans don't have to think about because it's a really complicated system and who cares, and you just sort of take it for granted. Of course, if you're in one of these programs, it consumes your whole life. But now all of those kinds of legal status are being taken away from people through no fault of their own. They haven't actually done anything different. They haven't broken any laws. They've done everything right. They've gotten in line and filed the paperwork and paid the fees and the attorneys and all of that. And their ability to stay here, to work here, is just being taken away from them anyway. Effectively, the government, through Donald Trump, is creating a larger population of undocumented people because it is taking people who are legal and rendering them illegal. So the Somali case is just the most recent one that's gotten some attention, in part because there's some drama between him and Ilhan Omar. But this goes way beyond that. Again, it's like hundreds of thousands of people who are going to lose their ability to work legally, to work on the books and pay taxes and feed their families and all that. It's going to be really tough on them, but also presumably tough on the employers and the communities where they're intertwined right now.
Yeah, and this has always been a big part, or at least not always, this whole year, as Donald Trump has ramped up these deportations, there's been all these conversations about, rule of law concerns, there are, not insignificant arguments on the Republican side about look, these people are in the country illegally. They have been forever. Are we just going to accept that as the status quo indefinitely for like the rest of time, or are you at some point going to start deporting people? On the other side, there are these arguments about how they've been here. They're embedded in these communities. They're generating economic activity by going to work, and all of these are only heightened. Obviously, these concerns are only heightened when it comes to these people who are not here illegally, right? I mean, there are policy questions, like fine policy questions to ask about TPS. Joe Biden, during his term, did dramatically expand the TPS program. There are a lot more people here under TPS today than there were, in 2020 when Biden took office. So, it's not completely like beyond the pale for Donald Trump to, in theory, tighten up that program somewhat. But I think what the one of the other things here is that it's not just about these people, right? I mean, like, it's really bad for these people that this stuff is happening, for these people who, like you say, got in line and did things correctly. But one thing that I saw you posting about just today was this new report, I think from the Penn Wharton Business School, about just sort of like the overall economic activity that is likely to be lost just from these, basically from the Trump administration ripping up these people's work permits. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So like I said, I do want to center the pain of all of this on the actual immigrants whose lives are being destroyed, but it's not only them who will be affected. So if you look at the Penn Wharton budget models analysis on all of this, they're the ones who had done this calculation that like 700,000 TPS holders are going to lose their ability to stay here. And of those, about 550,000, 550,000 have work permits right now and will lose their ability to work legally. And so that's going to lead to big labor shortages in sectors like construction. There are a lot of TPS holders who are in construction. There are a lot of TPS holders who work as home health care aides. Like there are a lot of members of the Haitian immigrant community, for example, who work as home health care aides or in other kinds of critical care work to take care of lots of patients, including American-born ones. Your grandma might lose her ability to have a qualified, legally working person caring for her.
Bulwark Takes is sponsored by Calm. There's a lot out there telling us how to be better. Be a better parent, better partner, better worker, better version of yourself. It's exhausting. When I need to hit pause and reset, Calm is the tool I reach for to release stress and find space to breathe, even on the busiest days. Calm is the #1 app for sleep and meditation, and it's here to help you feel better. If you're feeling like you could use some support navigating life's ups and downs, get the relief you need with Calm sessions. They include guided meditations to help you work through anxiety and stress, boost your focus, build healthier habits, and take better care of your physical health. Or sleep stories, sleep meditations, and calming music to help you drift off to a restful sleep quickly and naturally. The Calm app puts the tools you need right in your pocket, so stress and anxiety relief is always within reach. Calm has over 2 million 5-star reviews and can help you stress less, sleep more, and live mindfully. Calm your mind. Change your life. Calm has an exclusive offer just for listeners of our show. Get 40% off a Calm premium subscription at calm.com/bulwarktakes. It's an amazing value. Go to calm.com/bulwarktakes for 40% off unlimited access to Calm's entire library. Calm.com/bulwarktakes, and tell Calm you heard about them from me, the calmest person on the internet.
So there are, big impacts to local economies, to particular industries, and to the economy writ large. The 3 states that will be affected the most, according to this report, are Florida, Texas, and New York, because there are big immigrant communities in those places where, again, we're talking about a population of people who currently have legal status who are losing their legal status and therefore their ability to work. I should mention, by the way, that there is some litigation challenging a number of these policy changes. For example, there have been a bunch of attempts by the Trump administration to take away this kind of this special status from Venezuelans, and there's been litigation over that. So it's not a done deal yet, but it certainly makes it much riskier for these people to continue working and contributing to their communities and caring for your grandma and building homes and serving food and all of the other occupations and industries that this population of immigrant workers are currently concentrated in. So yeah, it will be felt. And, when we had big labor shortages a few years ago coming out of COVID, part of the reason why at the time was that we had a big decrease in immigration. And again, in certain sectors where there is a larger immigrant labor force, you really felt that you had less lawful immigration. Also, for a while, less undocumented immigration as well. That eventually reversed, but there was a period of time when there was just very few people crossing over the border, even legally, and that had impacts on the economy. There was a lot of talk at the time of like, how come no one wants to work anymore? And the problem was literally there were fewer people coming into the labor force, regardless of whether people wanted to work or not. There were just fewer bodies. So we saw this happen before. And one other change that I didn't mention, by the way, in terms of like bureaucratic policies that have kind of gone under the radar, is that until now, I should say, when people try to get their work permit renewed, because depending on what visa you're on, you have to get it renewed every so often, every few years. There has been a really long lag time between when you file the paperwork to get it renewed and when it, when it actually gets processed. And there was a really long lag time during the pandemic because all government services, like lots of private sector services, were backed up. And the Biden administration said, okay, we're just going to automatically renew you, or at least give you a grace period until we get around to figuring out the paperwork. And the Trump administration said, no, if we haven't processed your paperwork by the time your visa runs out, and we don't get it, we don't send you back the renewal in time, too bad. You're going to lose the ability to legally work. So there are probably going to be a lot of people who are just stuck in this very slow bureaucracy who, again, are doing everything right. Let's say the administration hasn't taken away their legal ability to work officially, but they can de facto take it away to work by just slowing things down so much that they never actually process people's paperwork. The upshot being, again, you're going to have even more workers who lose their ability to continue being employed legally because the Trump administration is either slow walking their paperwork or deliberately saying, never mind, we are illegalizing you or de-documenting you. You're going to see a lot more of that in the months ahead.
Well, one of the things I have a hard time wrapping my mind around with all of these things is it's not like this is the same thing as deportation, right? At least in kind of a proximate short-term way. These are still people who are here, who are going to be here. Maybe some of them will self-deport if they lose their work permits or whatever, but not necessarily. And so if you're weighing sort of even from the point of view of the Trump administration, it's a little hard to wrap your mind around some of this stuff where you're basically removing the economic benefits to the country and even to your own voters of having these workers here and productive and contributing, but not actually. You know what I'm saying? All from the point of view of the Trump administration, even the good stuff about having them here is the stuff that you're getting rid of. I wanted to ask a little bit about as well about another thing. I hate to make you sort of speculate about what Donald Trump is thinking, but this is another thing I have not been able to really wrap my mind around is that when you talk about this sort of push and pull between, more migration and less migration and thinking about it in terms of economic activity, obviously from the point of view of illegal immigration, they've been pretty straightforward. They think in their view, if you're in the country illegally, it doesn't matter how much, economic behavior or activity you're putting into the pot, you need to go, you're out of here. But when it comes to these people who are currently legal, but who various parts of the MAGA coalition would rather not be, it seems like Trump has taken sort of diverging paths, because I'm thinking of the fight over the H-1B visas that we just saw a couple of weeks ago, where Trump kind of siding with the tech companies in his coalition, the tech bros in his coalition, basically declined to do what some MAGA types like Marjorie Taylor Greene wanted to do, and really clamp down on the number of H-1B visas we were giving out to foreign workers in tech, things like that. So is there a way that to make this all make sense, that in this one case, he's going with the more economic generation?
Genuinely, I think he has no idea what his own administration is doing. He has outsourced all of this to Stephen Miller. Stephen Miller is anti-immigrant. Again, not just anti-undocumented immigrant. He is anti-immigrant, period. That's why he is putting in place all of these policies that documented immigrants. And I think Trump just has no idea. It's not only about skilled worker visas, which, by the way, under Stephen Miller have been much harder to get. Whatever Donald Trump is saying on podcasts and the like, it doesn't matter what he's saying. What matters is what the administration is doing. Not only on those kinds of visas. You may recall that a few months ago, again, amid all of these like lurid videos of ICE raids and CBP raids at workplaces, Donald Trump said something along the lines of, we're not going to raid Home Depots and restaurants because, and farms, because we know it's really important for the employers in those industries to have these reliable, loyal workers. Meanwhile, he said this, but the administration was continuing to do those things. So I think Trump just has no idea what's going on under his own roof. And not that that absolves him of any responsibility. Obviously, the buck stops with him. But even on the isolated kinds of ideas that he has that seem, I don't want to even say compassionate, seem more, rational, right? Like, why are we pulling the agricultural workforce out of commission at a time when we're concerned about high grocery prices? Like, that's a very rational, self-interested way to think about his policies. He might say those kinds of things. He might want those kinds of things, but he is doing nothing to execute them. Stephen Miller is in charge, and Stephen Miller really understands this system in a way that is effective and also dangerous. He knows all of the different bureaucratic hurdles that he can throw up for skilled workers, for student visas, for agricultural visas, for asylum seekers, like every one of these like nitty gritty categories of immigrants, of work permits, of visas. He understands all of the mechanisms available to destroy them. And he's doing that. Whatever it is his boss wants, he's doing it because he is single-mindedly focused on doing it, on getting immigrants out of this country and keeping new ones away from this country.
I know what you mean when you say Trump doesn't know what's going on under his roof, but also in another sense, I feel like the stuff going on under his roof is the one thing he is really attentive to. All the bric-a-brac on the walls in the Oval Office and the East Ballroom.
Well, yes, the
new ballroom construction and the flagpole outside and the patio and all that stuff. He is way on top of. Some of the policy stuff, not so much. But yeah, I take your point there. I think we can leave it at that. We're going to keep following this story. Catherine's going to keep following this story. Thanks, Catherine, for coming on and talking us all through it. Thanks to you all out there for watching. Head over to thebulwark.com, subscribe to Receipts, Catherine's economics-focused newsletter. She's been hitting home runs in her first few already. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.